Dr. Marlyn Young is the district-wide behavior coordinator for Abilene ISD. She's specializing in special education students, writing behavior goals and plans, helping teachers to implement specific behavior accommodations for students, working with campus principals and teachers to address unique student needs, and training teachers and staff on tiered behavior interventions. And we are so thrilled to have her here today to speak with us about this. And Dr. Marlyn, we will let you go ahead and start whenever you are ready.
Yes, so good morning. So I am going to take this ID off because it'll jumble the entire time. If I look dark, I have you pushed back because I do have on my glasses, and I have bifocals. Age kicked in this year. I think it kicked in like double because they actually wanted to talk about trifocals, and I was like, well, that's depressing. So anyway, if I have you pushed back, then I get to see everybody. But I'm going to try to share my screen. When Rebel reached out to me, she kind of wanted me to give you a basis of a little bit about what we do behavior-wise in the district, and then some services that we do to help kiddos that come in, and then kind of how we can partner together to help with that. And so I put, I'm not a long-winded person, so just, take that off you can rest easily, okay? And I'm always willing to jot questions down. I'll do my best to answer as much as I can. And so here we go. So bear with me, I'm gonna share my screen. I've got two little clip videos that I hope they share well with you, because they kind of embody on what we work with every day. So can you see that? Okie dokie. So I got to move you. Hold on just a second. Okay, so I just kind of titled it Discovery to Recovery. That's kind of how we utilize when we go in and look for kiddos that struggle with behavior. We know that teachers discover them very, very quickly, and it's a very hard job. And so we try to get them on the road to recovery and keep them in class as much as we can. And so that's kind of how I titled it. So she wanted me to kind of go over what I've done in the past. And so I've done this for 25 years now. I kind of started teaching reading and remedial reading. I've taught high school English. I think that was my favorite. I taught seniors. I've been an assistant principal and a principal, and now a district behavior coordinator. My love has always been working with kiddos that have extreme aggressive behavior and figuring out the reasons why we have to have those types of behaviors in the classroom, and kind of getting down to the core of it. Out of the four of us that are in the district, I am blessed to service all of the secondary kids. As my husband will tell you, and my dad, she doesn't have much fear. And so I still look at an 18-year-old as a child. And even though they may stand taller than me, we still chisel down the core of the problem. I still do address some elementaries, but a lot of my focus is on middle school and high school. So I kind of broke up our presentation today into three little segments. The first is I kind of want to show you basic behavior that we see daily. Right now, I did a huge study when I went through to get my doctorate's degree on generations. And so right now we're seeing two generations, and I found something that kind of just shows you, these are the kids that we're dealing with every day, that you probably see every day. And we're having to change the way we're addressing those kids. They're not like they were when I was a child. So I grew up in the 80s. My parents were baby boomers. My grandparents were from the Great Generation. And so the way that these kiddos speak to their parents now was uncalled for. When I was growing up, was definitely uncalled for. We've never spoke to my grandparents that way ever, times infinity. And the kids that we address, we talk about that. There's a lot of times that when we talk to parents, and we have a lot of grandparents raising children as well, that if they're disrespectful to them and I'm standing there, I make them go back and correct that. Because I tell them that they're not going to be where they're going to be unless that person's there tending to their needs. And so that's just a generational thing. I think a lot of it's just me and knowing the generations that raised me. Then we're going to kind of briefly talk about how we address behavior here in the district. So how we go through that process, and then how we can partner with you. Things that we need from CASA that would help us, because I visit with a lot of CASA workers, especially when I go to ARDS and take in transfers. And so I'm hoping that's a path that will help us today. So our first one was just to kind of talk about who we're dealing with. So I'm going to talk about the older generation that we have right now. And that generation is Generation Z. So I'm hoping that this will take you to where I want it to be.
Marlyn, has your video started? I'm not able to see it.
So I was just watching, I guess, all on my little lone self here. My apologies.
No worries.
Well, we're learning something new every day, huh?
Absolutely.
So do you see it now?
Yes, ma'am, we sure do.
Okay. So let me kind of take you there from the beginning, and then I have one more, and then we don't have any more videos. The second one is well worth watching. So this one kind of tells us a little bit about the older generation that we're seeing, and they're very, very quick.
And I'm not sure if we can hear it.
Can you hear it?
I'm not able to hear it just yet.
Robin Cheryl says no. Donna, can you hear it? These are the only people I see on my screen. Can anybody else hear it?
Hear it.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's just say I've got it all written out for you, so I think we'll be okay. Are we back to this? Can you see this? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So Generation Z is the 97 to 2009. So I have two Zs that live in my house. I have a 16-year-old and a fixing to be 21-year-old. So our older kiddos, this is kind of what what they expect. So this is all based on research. First and foremost, the oldest is 23. They're very tech savvy. So if we're not addressing them with some type of technology, we're probably losing them. In fact, everything is through this. Like they take pictures of themselves and they post it. They don't know anything else. That's how they communicate with one another. They've got digital fingerprints. I didn't even know what that was until I researched it. They want to make a difference. That's their biggest goal. They use their smartphone over 15.4 hours a week, and that's climbing. To let you know that I have dealt with 2 cases of kiddos that have some type of psychological disorder that deals with the absence of technology. And those are very, very difficult. 70% of them watch YouTube all day long. They believe in they tell the most elaborate stories of all time. They always need something visual. They want you to show them, they preferably show them a video of it. 72% of them really want to own their own business. And I know this one from right off because my son is a junior at Texas State. And if you ask him what he's going to do, he's going to open his own skateboard shop. But they don't get the concept yet of where all that comes from. There's an app for everything. And they value their privacy. So if you want to look on their cell phones, you probably can't because they shrink that down.
They're like, Melanie's like, yeah. Head's hurting.
Yes.
Do you hear that?
Yes, Marlyn, I'm sorry. I would just ask each participant to mute. We are hearing some background noise.
Chip box, you told me.
I try to warn you.
TJ, I think we might be hearing your background noise. So sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, Marlyn, sorry about that.
That's okay. So the other group that we are struggling with is the newer group that we have in right now. And I really wish this video would have played.
Marlyn, I am so sorry.
Okay.
Let me announce it again. If everyone that's on, please mute their microphones. Penny, I think we're hearing some background noise from you in your car.
Well, I'm sorry, I muted it. It says I'm on mute. I don't know.
Okay, we're still able to hear that noise.
Okay, let me just pull off and see if I can fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, great. Thank you, Penny. All right, Marlyn.
Okay. So this generation, I really wish the video would have played because it's nothing but kiddos screaming when you take away their cell phones and iPads. And when you ask them, when they talk to 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds. And when you ask them what's the one thing they want for Christmas, is they tell you they want technology. They don't want a dog. They don't want Barbie. They don't want a toy truck. They want technology. And the older ones that are 7 and 8 want to be able to play the big boy games that dad plays. And so this group that's coming in, we're seeing as kindergartners, 1st and 2nd graders, they don't like to share. And so one of the things that we're having to teach when we go in is we have to teach them how to share. They're constantly on the move. So much so that I sat through a meeting today with one that parents don't see the difference in the two. At home, they're constantly on the move too, but they think that's normal. But at school, when they're constantly on the move, they're getting in trouble for it, or they're not getting the academics because they're being pulled because they're bouncing all over the place. And so we're seeing a conflict there. They don't like to play by rules, so we constantly have to redo those. When we talk to parents, their biggest point is they just want them to be happy. And I coach a lot of teachers in the art of the fact that you can't make everybody happy, but we have a lot of parents that come at our teachers with that. We're seeing 2, they were usually born to older parents. but we're seeing some that are born to very, very, very young parents. So their parents had them when they were like 16 and 17, and grandma has them, and they're just now in the age of being in school. Trust means everything to them. And they do not know a world without technology at all. At all. So if that's not present in any type of situation, they're going to wiggle and squirm, and it's going to be very, very difficult. When we look at the data for our behavior, just very, very quickly, we're seeing that 1 out of 6 youth, and you probably see this a whole lot in what you do, 1 out of 6 youth has a very serious mental health problem that impairs their school. And that number is climbing, and it starts all the way down into kindergarten. Sometimes this does not want to be my friend. Okay. 73.8% of children the age of early as 3 years old are being diagnosed with depression. I've said on probably 3 ARDs of kiddos that are 3 and 4, and they at the early childhood center, and they're just going, we're not quite knowing what we need to do because they're making very serious threats. Things that normal kiddos that are 3 and 4 don't think about. So the 3 and 17-year-old, they're having unusual problems. 53% of students will have some type of emotional behavioral problem turn out having a specific learning problem. 66% of those students usually starts with a language disability. They weren't able to get that what they wanted conveyed in time, and it wasn't addressed early enough. And so one of the things that I'm really passionate about is the ECI, the early childhood intervention. It's so crucial that we have that. %45 of students that have some type of emotional disorder or behavioral won't graduate or will graduate from a high school with a diploma. But we're seeing that number is dropping. Most of them are entering what we call the pipeline, which is the pipeline to prison. They get in trouble, and it gets to the point that they become arrested. We've got about 1% that age out, and they don't get any diploma at all. They struggle going. The GED requirements have changed, where it's more intensified now, and it's incredibly difficult. And then 70% of our emotional behavioral disordered students have been arrested. So a couple of things that I tell folks about behavior is that behavior is learned and it serves a specific purpose. Always, 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 amen. I tell parents that as well. There's a specific purpose that they're behaving that way. And we've got to get down to that purpose. It's always in the context in which it is in. Reading and writing are our 2 biggest contexts. Kiddos, and that's my biggest fear with when we went on Corona and we've got so many kids on remote, is that we're going to see a huge deficit, a huge impact on our reading, which is going to be, it's not going to be to our benefit. For every year a behavior has been in place, it takes at least a month of consistent intervention for it to change. So here's something that we can partner on. Studies and data show that if we have parent on our side when we start these interventions, give us 6 weeks and we can pretty much get some of that behavior changed. However, if we fight the parent and the parent sees no problem and they're not a participant in that intervention, we're looking at 12 to 14 weeks, if not months, before that behavior is ever changed. Because what we have to teach is behavior that's acceptable at school, and then you have your behavior when it's at home. And that's really, really difficult. We're really big in the positive behavior approach is that we can improve behavior 80% by pointing out something that someone does correctly, not just telling them that they did a good job, you're awesome, you're great, but being specific in what they did the good job in, how they're awesome, what they did that was great, so that they know specifically what they did was really good. That's really hard because we have a whole generation of teachers, and I was accused of it as well, of just going, good job, glad you made it. Well, good job for what? Good job for getting your name on your paper. So we've got to be specific about that. It's been tracked, but we only give positive praise 6.2% of our time. That's it. The rest of it's dealt with nothing but correction. So we spend a lot of our time, or I do when I'm working with teachers, which it's hard, especially if you're dealing with a kid that you've struggled with, to tell them, you got to positive praise them. But the more that you hit them with positive praise, the more we're seeing that change. All behavior serves a function. And so we've got our 4 functions. I call them SEAT: sensory, escape, attention, and tangible. There's something that they want. And that your reaction determines if there's going to be that behavior again. So I call it, what do you plan to go to die on the mountain for? So if language is something that is a no-no to you, that kiddo that is getting under your skin is probably using language continuously because they know that that gets you. So they just try to find the one thing that they dig at. So you have to make your mountain really high. And that's very, very hard. It took me a long time to get a very high mountain. And then I tell all my teachers, die on your mountain, not in front of them. Go outside and have your breakdown, but don't do it in front of them. So how do we address the behavior? So we've got all these behaviors functioning. How do we address them? This is how it's addressed. So when you go in to sit in meetings or work with kiddos, this is a state of Texas address. Pretty much this is how it should go everywhere you're at. First of all, there's got to be response to intervention, and it's broken up into 3 sections. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. It is written in federal law. The first level is tier 1. That is a general level for every kiddo. So that's what's done in the classroom for every kid. That's their general expectations, the common rules, basic reminders, things that you would do. Your be kind, be respectful, all those different types of rules. We expect everybody to start the year off, or when you get that kiddo in, 6 to 9 weeks of you going over your expectations and your rules with your general class. If you've got a kiddo that struggles and you're constantly having to do referrals and call out and you're struggling with the behavior, that's when we move to tier 2. In tier 2, we take that and we just make it a little bit more refined. And we look at them and we're going to do something positive behavior contract. So if you've got a kiddo that's hitting, we're going to talk about having safe hands. One that's kicking, safe feet. One that's running, we're not going to run away. We're going to remain safe in a safe area. So we use a lot of those terminologies. We do a lot of positive praise, and we do a lot of tangibles for our little kiddos. We address the students more individually. So this is something that is written down and being tracked as data. We set goals for them and we want them to achieve it. So these are meetings that if you're a CASA worker, you need to be involved in, because parent is going to they have to be involved in tier 2 meetings and on. They have to be. We do check in and check out. So we'll have somebody that go in and just kind of pull them. They may take a walk. They may sit and talk to them. Tell me about your day. Is there something that bothered you? How can we handle that again? We call that check in and check out. For our older kids, we have mentoring programs for them where they can go in and have that older adult, sometimes it's a peer that they can sit and kind of make that connection with. This data has to be gathered for 3 to 6 weeks. There is no negotiation on that. A lot of teachers want that to be at least a week, but you cannot gather data that quick. So it's got to be something that's consistent for 3 to 6 weeks. If that is not working, then we move to what's called tier 3. And in tier 3, this is where we get very intensified. We do something that's called a wraparound service. And we imagine that kid standing in the middle, and we have services wrapped all the way around them. So we may have a counselor, Betty Hardwick, their CASA worker, an administrator, a teacher that they've built a relationship with, and those people wrap around that student and they offer assistance to them. Places to go, when you need help, I can help tutor you, those types of things. I step in tier 3, that's part of my job. I come in, I can write a functional behavior plan for them and put in a behavior support plan that's a little bit more. I've done one already this morning. I'm fixing to do one after lunch again for a kiddo that kind of helps track that. So let's say none of those things have worked and we still have Johnny chunking chairs across the room and it's just not working. 3 to 6 weeks, we've done everything. We've pulled all the tricks of our trade out. A possibility could be this is where we do special education testing. Other services could be provided at this time. We've had kiddos be pulled and be sent to RTCs, be sent to different homes, those types of things. But if we know they need special education, we like to catch them before they are pulled from our district so that we can provide that for them. So let's say they're special ed. I think you've already gone through the referral system before, but we've gone through this whole entire system. Behavior is not much different than this. So with behavior, what we have to look at now is what we call their least restrictive environment. First and foremost, that's the general education classroom where we all have all kids together, and that's where we want them to be. I'm a huge proponent in least restrictive environment in the general education classroom first. I spent many of my days sitting beside those kiddos that would chunk chairs, and I just want to coach along because they will learn from their peers. Studies show kids learn from other kids. So we've got to have that. We also look at inclusion services. Is the kiddo having outbursts or behaviors when it's reading time? Well, it could be that they're dyslexic, or it could be they have a reading comprehension problem. So would it be better if we had 2 teachers in there and do some inclusion, some one-on-one with them? We also do pull out, and we are seeing more that some kids just need to have resource services. So they'll pull them out and they put them in resource, which is a smaller setting with that special ed teacher, and they work on some modified classroom work, and it's just a slower pace, and it kind of walks them through it, and we see those behaviors decrease. If that doesn't work, most of the time we'll call in a licensed specialist in school psychology, which is our LSSP. They come in, they take the data that I've provided them, the data the schools provide them, and they write a more intensive behavior intervention plan, and we can put it in their special ed paperwork. And so that's kind of what we kind of do to move them with behavior. The district, Abilene ISD, has 2 types of placement programs that a kiddo that's struggling can go into. So the SAC program, or the Student Achievement Program, is the one that I've written and wrote the most and worked the most with. So this program, you have to be in special education. You must have some type of behavioral and emotional behavioral issues that are educationally diagnosed. So we've got a lot of kiddos that come in with PMDD, they come in with ODD. Those are credible diagnoses, but they're not carried in education. So we have to look at something that's carried in education, and most of the time it's under what we call emotional disturbances. And so emotional disturbances can cover a lot of those, but it has to come through an educational purpose. We write intensive behavior intervention plans, and teachers are trained with those. And it has to be a placement that is done in an art, and a parent must agree to it. I have had parents disagree, and they stay within the general education program. We can override that. That is just something that we just have to find a different angle and work at a different pace. If they're placed in the SAC program, it's a small classroom setting. We don't have any, we have got 2 adults in there to about 7 kids. The sole focus is behavior. And it's a step program. So it's not a forever program. It's supposed to work them out. And so that is an option that we have here in AISD. Regular code of conduct does go along with the SAC program. We're just, we work more intensively with them. So there's a lot of things that we kind of put, we kind of just take, we know that. So let me just give you an example. I mean, there's times that I've worked with a kiddo and he might've kicked me. I'm not automatically gonna go, you're going to the office, I'm done. I may take that kick and we work through it at a different angle. That's just part of being in the program. And so we work through what made you frustrated, there are other ways to express yourself. The other program that I will be more than honest with you, Susan Webb does, we have a therapeutic intervention program we call TIP. I am more the behavior side, but we do have the TIP program at elementary, middle school, and high school as well. You do not have to be in special education to be serviced as a TIP kiddo. So it's a little bit more broader. It's a therapeutic approach. They do the trauma-informed skills through that. And again, a parent must agree on the placement for TIP because it will take them out of their home campus. So how can you help us? So how can we partner together? Critical education information makes our world function so much easier and quicker for that child. Do they have, this is the one that takes the longest. Do they have special education services? If there's any way that we could pair and get those services quicker, that paperwork quicker, it just helps move it along. 504 services, that helps as well. Levels of trauma, where are they at? Have they had some types of interventions? Placements or hospitalization. I will tell you that I work with 3 right now that I found out 3 months into school that they came right out of an RTC program to a home to start school the next day. They did not know the dad very well. They did not, or the parent very well, the parents that they've been placed with very well, and they were thrown right into a school setting coming from one that's very small. And it was extremely difficult. Knowing that information ahead of time helps. Any type of outside providers help us as well. If we need to connect with counselors, have them involved, that helps. So those types of things that if we could partner together helps us get that child on the road to recovery in their education. So I am going to hand the screen back over to Teresa and we'll answer anything that I can.
All right, we do have a question in our chat box here. Penny's asking, how do we get the site counselors to address specific behavioral problems?
So are these site counselors that are outside or within our district?
I would probably think outside.
So what we need to do is for them to help us address those specific problems. If that parent or that guardian will give us permission to share information, we will share everything with them. So, and that's what we want. So the ones that I've worked with probably work the most either with New Horizons or and I work with Betty Hardwick. I am the very first person to ask that mother, do you have these services? If they do, we need to be able to have consent to work together so that they know what we're working on and we can make that happen across the board.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions that they would like to ask?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Marlyn,
Yes.
do you ever run into any difficulty with the regular classroom teacher wanting to comply with the program that you set up? And if so, how do you deal with that?
So just let you know, Mr. David, I am pretty blunt and honest, so I will tell you, yes, I do that. It's probably daily. I go and work with the principal first. So when the principal requests us to come onto campus, there's very few that we go straight to a teacher. The principal will request it. When I go in, I'll make observations first. And then I go back to the principal, and I've just got a good working relationship with my principals. And I just tell them, here's what has to happen if we're going to help that kiddo. A lot of the times, so I'm under the old analogy from my mother, who is a baby boomer, who says you can get more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. And so there are lots of times that I go into the teachers and I listen a whole lot about how bad things are. And then we start turning that around to how can I help you? Because, and I'm very upfront with them, that child's not leaving your classroom. So I need for you to tell me how I can help you, because he's not going to leave. I'm your stop. And I can't help that, because law, they all want them in the SAC program, but law states that they can't be in that. So that's what we do. I will tell you, I mean, there are some times that I have to recommend a teacher change. And that's okay. We're not all supposed to get along with everybody. And some personalities just don't mesh well. And, they're 10 or 5 or 15, and I'm 48. And I tell them that. I said, so we've got to look at them as children and model that behavior for them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned the tier 1, tier 2, et cetera. How does that relate into a child waiting to be tested for special ed? I know that I was told that this child, he's in kindergarten and is far, far behind where he should be. And so I spoke with the counselor, and anyway, long story short, the guardian agreed and sent in, the paperwork and all of that. And they said, while it takes time to collect the data and then determine if he needs to be tested, they have instituted an RTI, but I'm not sure what exactly that is supposed to involve. And the second part of that is in these types of RTIs, it's not a behavioral issue, it's a learning issue. Mm-hmm. Is CASA, when do those kinds of meetings start? I mean, how do I know what tier? Is there a tier for special ed? Is this making sense? Because it's a little confusing between the behavioral and the learning, although I know sometimes they go together.
So first of all, if a parent requests testing in the state of Texas, they have to continue RTI, but they have to honor the parent request and sign consent to get the kiddo tested. So the whole idea of stopping it is no longer. That changed a couple of years ago when the state of Texas was written up federally for not, for setting caps on special ed. It was done about 3 years ago because I went to the conference for it. So if a parent or a guardian writes and says, I want that child tested for special ed, that district has to adhere and honor that. RTI has to continue. They have to continue doing interventions for them. As soon as they go to RTI level 2, a parent needs to be involved so that they are aware that child is struggling. But they have to continue that RTI through the process of being tested. And the district can request RTI for that child, but they still have to honor the request for testing, especially if it's been done by a parent or guardian.
Okay, so whatever he's doing in this RTI right now, the intervention must be educational.
Yes.
He's also going to be evaluated for speech because there's a really overt problem with speech. So while he's in the RTI program for educational needs, eventually that can go forward to a tier 2. unless he starts special education, something like that. Okay. And
Yes.
so just staying in touch with the teacher or basically the school counselor is the best way for me to keep up with what's happening with him.
The counselor, the
Counselor.
teacher, yes, because she's probably keeping all the data. Because he's so young, they'll probably do speech first. And normally that's what they do with our little ones. They try speech first, and then they try at least a year of speech to see if language development will help before. And if speech becomes better, but academics are still lagging behind, sometimes they'll go ahead and bring on the academic testing as well. But once they're covered under that umbrella, so that everybody knows, if you got a speech kid covered right now, so you have a speech kiddo, and they're a second grader, call an ARD and they feel that there needs to be further testing, do it that way. Because if it's in ARDS requesting further testing because of academic purposes, RTI can be gathered, but it's not crucial. Testing has to be done because it's requested.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? Feel free to unmute and ask your question.
So you're welcome to email me at any time. And if I can help in any way, please let me know. I do not mind at all.
Marlyn, do you think it would be possible to have you email us the links to those videos that you were planning on showing?
Absolutely. I'll email you the link and I'll email you the PowerPoint.
Awesome. That would be so great. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And then,
Can I send it to Rebel? Because I have her email.
yes, that will be just fine.
Okay.
You can forward that to me. And then we also, if nobody has any other questions, we always do door prizes at the end. So we have 3 that we're giving away today. I don't have them to display here, but Marlyn, I'm going to let you do the honors if you're okay with that. If
I would love to.
If you will pick 3 numbers between the numbers 1 and 24 for me.
Absolutely. Number 3.
Okay. Deb Methvin, you've won a prize.
Number 13.
Sally Shelton, you've won a prize.
Woo! I saw Shelly. I haven't seen Deb. And then number 20.
Deborah Kusick, we've also run a prize. So we are so thrilled, and we'll have those up at the CASA office for you whenever it's convenient for you to drop by. Starting tomorrow, you can pick those up. And does anyone else have any other questions before we get off today?
No, but this was great. Thank you very much, Marlyn.
Oh, anytime. No,
It
thank
was
y'all for
really,
listening.
really informative.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, thank you, Marlyn, very much. And Teresa, could you provide us copies of that PowerPoint, please?
Yes, we will forward that to you with those
Thank you.
links for the video as well. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Marlyn
Welcome.
Young. You were fantastic.
one.
We learned so much. We appreciate
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That is the end of our meeting for today, and we thank you for being on, and you'll receive your 1 hour of CEU credit. Thank you. Y'all have
Thank you.
a blessed day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.